What is up? Welcome into yet another edition of the Ben Garcia Show. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day, however you're watching, however you are following, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, for free on the iHeartRadio app, or you are putting a face to the voice and watching on YouTube. We appreciate that as well. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe on all platforms, as well as if you're on YouTube, leave a comment. Tell me why you love me. Tell me why you hate me. But overall, this is not necessarily a Benstant reaction like we've been doing in other nights. It is my anniversary weekend. Wifey always comes first, so you're getting this the day after, but it's okay. It's all good. I've still got some analysis for you and some things to talk about here on the Ben Garcia Show. Mavericks Timberwolves Game 2 has come to a close about, 12 hours ago? And my ultimate outcome of this game is a few things. We're just going to start here, though. Luka Dončić is making a serious case for the best player in the NBA, bar none. Luka Dončić is going from a top 5 player in the NBA to potentially the best player in the NBA. If Luka Dončić wins the NBA Finals, I would have to ask what is stopping him for supplanting Nikola Jokic as the best player in the NBA. Luka Dončić has continued to take teams with lesser talent further than they should go. That's not to say this Dallas Mavericks team is bad. This Dallas Mavericks team is pretty good. But it's nowhere near the best supporting cast in the NBA. The Celtics have a better supporting cast. The Denver Nuggets have a better supporting cast. The Minnesota Timberwolves are better top to bottom than the Dallas Mavericks. But it's just simply the Dallas Mavericks have Luka Dončić and the Minnesota Timberwolves do not. Luka Dončić, if they indeed win this playoff series, is going to firmly supplant himself as a top 2 player in the NBA. But this league has always been a what have you done for me lately league. And if he goes on to win the NBA Finals, he's going to be the best player in the NBA. I took a night to sleep on it. I thought about it, and I feel good about it. You look at Nikola Jokic you look at Nikola Jokic during the 2021 NBA playoffs, and he got smoked out of that playoffs in the second round. Without Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic hasn't really gone as far as Luka Dončić has. If you think back to that 2022 NBA playoffs, Luka Dončić took Maxi Kleber and Dorian Finney-Smith to the Western Conference Finals on the way to defeating a number 1 seed in the Phoenix Suns handily in Game 7. The Phoenix Suns still haven't recovered from that Game 7 debacle loss to the Dallas Mavericks. The Oklahoma City Thunder were the number 1 seed. We're absolutely a better top-to-bottom team than the Dallas Mavericks. Doesn't matter. Luka Dončić does what potentially the face of the NBA, what potentially the best player in the NBA does. He takes lesser talent to where they've never been before. And I never understood the hate for Luka Dončić. He's one of the best watchers in the NBA. I know some people get upset because he complains a little too much. Well, guess what? LeBron James, in his heyday, when he was the best player in the NBA, when he was undoubtedly snubbed of 6 MVP trophies, he complained all the time too. Michael Jordan never stopped complaining. All the superstars in the NBA and all the greats never stopped complaining. Luka Dončić might do it a little bit more than those players, but whatever. When you're that good, you're allowed to do whatever the hell you want. And that takes me from the Luka Dončić side of things, who is absolutely supplanting himself as one of the best players in the NBA. I didn't really get a chance to talk about the Kyrie Irving renaissance. And Kyrie Irving didn't play masterful in this game. In fact, he was, as the kids call it, mid for a long while in this game. But Kyrie Irving does so well what a lot of players don't do, does so well what some of the greats can't do. He closes out games. He gets teams back in it late in games. And as someone who has been a Kyrie Irving skeptic for a long time, nothing is better as a number 2 in the NBA, as a locked in, dialed in Kyrie Irving. He's a guy who is always just out in the wind, doing his own thing, and credit to him, he cares more about other things than basketball. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But Kyrie Irving having this renaissance, and I tweeted it out last night at Ben Garcia Show, basically saying, wow, this guy is so fun. And last night, going into the fourth quarter, hits 4 3-pointers in the fourth quarter, and he hadn't hit a 3-pointer in 7 quarters in this game. For some reason, Kyrie Irving has the gene that Kobe Bryant had, that Michael Jordan had, that LeBron James had, that when the game gets more of a nail-biter, more just clutch moments, I guess you should say. When the game gets in moments where you need a bucket, where it gets in nail-biting area, where it gets to a point where everyone is kind of worried what's going to happen in the next possession, Kyrie Irving delivers. 4 3-pointers in the third quarter last night when he hadn't had a 3-pointer yet all series long. The Kyrie Irving renaissance, I'm here for it. I love it. And who knows? A dialed-in, elite Kyrie Irving is exactly what a team needs in the Dallas Mavericks, who is a guy who's been there before and an elite number 2. And now that takes me to the Jason Kidd side of things. And I'll be really quick about the Jason Kidd thing, and then we'll get to Anthony Edwards. Jason Kidd is not deserving or is not getting enough praise during this series. He's out-coaching Chris Finch. I don't know what Chris Finch is doing. This drop coverage is not working. Rudy Gobert is getting played off the floor. You have 2 7-footers on the court in Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert. And the Dallas Mavericks are destroying them in the paint. Chris Finch is not adjusting. This drop coverage is not working. And I don't know how you allow for Rudy Gobert to get switched on to Luka Dončić. Jamal Crawford called it, and I think anyone who has watched basketball this entire year and is somewhat dialed in knew what was going to happen. Luka Dončić was going to give a little this, was going to give a little that, was going to get the switch on Rudy Gobert, and was going to hit a step-back 3 to win the game. We don't know if he was going to make it, but we knew exactly all what was coming. The fact that they didn't try to force the ball out of Luka Doncic's hands, the fact that they didn't try to blitz him, the fact that they didn't try to make it a little bit more difficult for Luka to get to his step-back jumper 3-pointer. I don't know what Chris Finch was doing. I don't know what the Minnesota Timberwolves were doing. The fact that you let a guy who I just talked about being potentially the best player in the NBA, if he wins the NBA Finals, get to his spots and get the guy he wanted in Rudy Gobert is insanity. I do not know how, if you are Chris Finch, you allow that to happen. That is nuts. That's horrible coaching. And Jason Kidd has outcoached this guy through 2 games of the series. And I don't know how the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to recover from that. Because if you allow Luka to get to his spots, we talked about it last post-game of Game 1. He will torch you. There was no reason for that to happen. Send a blitz. Make it tougher. Make him think twice. He's an amazing player, and if he hits a step-back 3 and you make it as hard as you can on him, you live with the results. But you saw Jaden McDaniels. He knew what was going to happen. Everyone did. Someone's got to run over and help Rudy Gobert. You cannot make it that easy for Luka Doncic to win the game. Everyone on their couch knew exactly what was going to happen. A step-back Luka dagger, and he hit it, and he made the Minnesota Timberwolves pay for it. And that brings me to my last point. We, and I'm including myself in this, may have just crowned Anthony Edwards a little too early. This is not me coming at Anthony Edwards for being awful or he's a terrible player or he's not a true number 1. He's 22 years old. He's in the Western Conference Finals, and he did indeed drag his team to the Western Conference Finals. But over the last 5 games, Anthony Edwards has simply not been good. Clutch Points put out a really good graphic. Basically, 18 points, 27 points, 16 points, 19 points, 21 points in his last 5 games. But none of those games have been efficient, and he hasn't hit more than 4 3-pointers. I'm sorry. I guess I should say it like this. He's 1 for 5 for 3-pointer in a game, 4 for 9, 2 for 10, 5 for 12, 2 for 7. He's not shooting efficiently. He's been very poor over the last 5 games, and I'm not here to tear Anthony Edwards down a new one because he's incredibly fun, but he really needs to work at his pull-up jumpers. When he's just catching and shooting, It's not too terrible. But at times, Anthony Edwards can shoot this team out of games, and I don't blame him for it. The Minnesota Timberwolves just do not have enough bucket getters on this team to match up with the Dallas Mavericks, and it's starting to really shoot them in the foot. Kyrie Irving, Luka Dončić, Derrick Jones Jr. can hit an open three. What is the name escaping me? PJ Washington can hit an open three normally. And on the Minnesota Timberwolves, if Cat isn't hitting his shots and Anthony Edwards isn't going nuclear, this team doesn't have a chance. And so we might have just crowned Anthony Edwards too early. We crowned him a superstar. We crowned him the face of the NBA. We crowned him the next Michael Jordan, for goodness sakes. Well, I didn't do that last part, but a lot of people did. And it's just, maybe we were a little too premature on the Anthony Edwards praise. Yeah, he's a great player, and I'm not here to knock him down because he is the reason why his team is in the Western Conference Finals, and they did defeat the buzzsaw that was the defending champion in the Denver Nuggets. But Anthony Edwards has proven he might just not be ready for the limelight in the biggest stages quite yet. It's not saying he won't ever be, but at 22 years old, we might have been a little premature on Anthony Edwards. With all that being said, I'm firmly switching my prediction now, which isn't really fair at 2-0, so I'm not going to take praise for it when it happens. But the Dallas Mavericks are going to win this series, and they might win this series in 5 games. They're a buzzsaw. The Minnesota Timberwolves are not adjusting. The Minnesota Timberwolves are not doing enough to make things hard on Luka Dončić. And personally, I don't know what the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to do to get back in this series because they didn't get down 2-0 to the Denver Nuggets. This is unfamiliar territory for them. I believe this is going to be over in 5, max 6 games, and it's going to go to the Dallas Mavericks. And Luka Dončić, if you want my really early NBA Finals prediction, is going to be an NBA champion and likely going to be named by me as the best player in the NBA if he does indeed do that. And if he continues to show up like he has been, even though he's playing injured, which isn't really fair because everyone at this stage is injured. But ultimately, an amazing Western Conference Finals. We'll talk to you guys potentially after Game 3, definitely after Game 4. But with that being said, the Dallas Mavericks have firmly cemented themselves as the better team and have a chokehold on this Western Conference Finals.